Hi there. Hey, I want to thank Andrew and our sponsors, Arrived POS, River Drive Cooperage, and White Labs for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Scott Kolbe, and I'm with Market Your Craft. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat window, and hopefully we'll have a couple minutes at the end. But let's get right to it. Have you heard the news? It's robots! Ah! If it sounds like the start to a scary sci-fi movie, you're right. It's robots versus humans in an epic battle for the future of our world. What we're going to talk about today is a little less gruesome, but just as scary. Craft beer is being invaded by tech, which promises to deliver the same liquid that you can get commercially, but from the comfort of your kitchen. And it's getting rave reviews. Perfect pour every time. So many options. It's a game changer. What we're talking about is the threat of tech replacing tasting room visits. Now, before anybody lights me up in the chat, I don't necessarily believe that we are totally going to be replaced by robots. However, you could argue that they're already here, right? We've got the home appliances that have been and gone in the last couple of years with Anheuser-Busch and Keurig and Pernod Ricard and their open platform. Currently, we've got the beer maker, which guarantees a great beer at home. And then you've got this $30 million capital raise from Canna Technologies to produce an eco-friendly appliance and thousands of different recipes of beer, wine, whiskey, regular beverages. The tech is already here. Some of them have gone by the wayside. Again, pointing out the fact that even though there's a threat, it may not necessarily happen that robots completely replace. However, the point is, sometime they could. And we are going to leave you with tools today that helps you humanize the brand so that that won't happen. Because what you're selling is not just your beverage, but the humanity behind your brand. Again, I'm Scott with Market Your Craft, and this is what we do. We help breweries, wineries, and distilleries with storytelling and sales strategies to help them stand out in a really, really crowded market right now. And we've had some fun with some amazing brands like Sierra Nevada and the guilds that we've worked with. So let's start out by saying, why are we even talking about this? Why are we talking about robots? Why is this important? It's because customers' expectations have changed. They've changed for the brands that they want to buy. They're looking for brands that'll provide them with options, with convenience. Sustainability is a big one. And then engagement. It's a tall order. There are a lot of check boxes right there. So you would ask yourself, well, again, how could tech provide that? How could tech give customers exactly what they're looking for, more so than the local brewery? It's because it's easy for customers to say yes to tech. And let's look at that. Do I have the options? Yeah, sure. They say that they can create thousands of different recipes of alcoholic drinks. Convenience? Well, sure, it's on your countertop. It's at home. I don't even have to leave. Sustainability? You bet. Because you're saving all the time and energy and waste in the canning and process and everything carbon footprint wise. And then engagement, I mean, you could argue this, but there's definitely an app for that. So breweries, when they look at that, it seems daunting. Like, well, tech is feeding us our lunch. Well, Actually, breweries have a lot of options. It's easy to talk about those, but we don't all the time. We have some conveniences, especially during COVID. We've learned to make it easier for the customer to get cans in hands. Sustainability, you bet. From small to big breweries, they're trying to figure out how they can make less of a carbon footprint, reclaim, recycle. And then engagement, the beer tenders are some of the best in the world, and they engage customers every single time they're in. So we have a story to tell. We have an argument why we are better than the threat of tech and what that represents. But we need to tell people, we need to give them a reason to visit. And people want to see people, not necessarily just products. Highlight your space and what you offer. Give them a view of the tasting room and help them to see themselves enjoying a beer with their friends or family. Share the products and events. You have this great lineup of beers and seltzers and ciders. Tell people about it. The events that you hold, whether that's anything from a food truck to a live musician. If you're talking about a trivia night, there are plenty of reasons for these folks to visit, but we're not spreading the word. We're not talking about it. We're not messaging the customers in a way that makes it easy for them to say yes. You're going to see that. We're going to come back to that quite a bit. Convenience. Customers want a reason to buy. Online ordering is something that we all scrambled to do to figure out when COVID hit. Online ordering and packaging, right? Curbside pickup, even local delivery. Some states allow for shipment. Retail product locators. So few of our breweries have a product locator that's kept up to date. It's so difficult, right? Who's carrying your product? Where can the customers get it if not in the tasting room? And then there's features like call ahead, wait list, and reservations. You could argue that was or wasn't a necessary evil during COVID, especially with capacity restrictions, but maybe that's something that carries forward. The convenience of that, the opportunity to plan my evening such that I know that there'll be a table waiting for me when I get to the brewery. And we talk about tech. Again, Cana with their huge capital raise, they've got a really compelling story to tell you. They would say any beverage is 90% water. Beverages are 5% unique ingredients. Not craziness. Basically, a core set of 5%. The entire process from start to finish, from production all the way to getting it to you, they estimate to be 400 trillion liters of water. It's a staggering number. Again, a compelling reason to pause and to think that it's grotesque. What can I do to help? Their countertop appliance could save 100 containers a month, and then a huge reduction in process and waste. Okay, so if the hair on the back of your neck is standing up and you're intrigued, just imagine a customer who's right on the fence about their carbon footprint and what they could do to actually impact that. If I can get the same beer that I drank at the local brewery right here at home without leaving, hey, I'm curious. Because what they're keying into, they're pulling your heartstrings when it comes to sustainability. And as a brewery, we need to give them a reason to believe that we're doing what we can. And that's things that are already in process. Certifications, partnerships, what you've done with upcycling, which is incredible, reuse and recovery, CO2 and whatnot, high efficiency equipment, it's big right now. And a lot of people are investing now, and it's going to pay dividends definitely in the future. Land stewardship and energy sourcing. These are just a handful of the efforts that you and your team are doing to try and reduce your carbon footprint. And you need to celebrate that because customers are buying, they're filtering their products and brands based on whether or not they believe that you have a moral compass. And then the last one is engagement. Give them a reason to care. We talk about this a lot with Market Your Craft. Storytelling is so important. And this is getting back to showing people and not products, showing people enjoying the beer in your tasting room, showing people enjoying each other, having fun at your event, listening to live music. Now, of course, we have to ask permission to grab photos, but most customers are certainly open to that. And it's a lot more raw and it's a lot more transparent than potentially a staged product shot with that slice of orange shot into it to produce the splash. It's beautiful, but let's get away from that. Listen to the community, what they're saying online, and then celebrate your personality. Are you super friendly? Are you edgy? Are you rock? Are you country? What defines you? Bring that to light because you're going to attract customers that way. So what we want to talk about before we get into the 30, 60, and 90-day plans to address this is what has really changed. If you take a look at the past 2 years, what has changed with COVID and selling your craft beer, cider, and seltzer? Well, a lot, almost everything, right? But we market and sell differently. We believe that a lot of this is going to carry forward even post-pandemic because consumers have changed their buying behavior, in part because of COVID and in part because it was coming. We were reaching a point with craft, with 9,000 plus breweries, where people were getting fed up with the noise. And so COVID plus that kind of peak of competition have put people somewhat on the defensive, which has changed their buying behavior. Now, what did we do as breweries to react to that? We scrambled to figure out online. If you didn't have an online presence already, you added a storefront, you figured out how to connect it to Arrived or your other POS system so that you could have online ordering and potentially contactless curbside pickup, because that was a thing for a while. And then indoor capacity changed. You had outdoor hybrid seating. And one thing that was consistent is breweries continued to put money and effort into developing that online channel, and that's not going to change. There was also a scramble for retail and packaging and trying to get in cans. We all know what's happened with Ball. Now, retail is probably still a viable strategy for a lot of breweries. However, it's going to change. We had to figure out reasons to give people that were hesitant to leave the house. That's weird to think about, but we were isolated for a time period. Lots of people didn't even want to leave. Interaction with friends and family were at a minimum, were essential only. Now, while that has changed and things have opened up and mask mandates are loosening, okay, we still had to give them a good enough reason to visit us versus somebody else. And that's something that remains post-COVID. You've seen this. Customer service, people are hypersensitive. Their expectations of customer service have changed. And you can't say it's good or bad. It is what it is. But the expectation is I am going to get a nearly immediate response to any inquiry that I put into the brewery, whether that's hours of operation, what food truck do you have tonight? How about your new product release? What time do I have to get there in order to queue up? All of these things require a nearly immediate response. Otherwise, you lose the attention of your customer. Short attention span? Yes. Customer service needed to be at a high level of performance during COVID because, again, there were so few opportunities to get outside the house. Transparency and simplicity, people just don't want to be marketed to in general. And so they wanted to see, again, the humanity of your brand, the personality of your brand. It was okay to be a little raw and unscripted and unpolished during COVID because everybody else was trying to figure things out too, right along there with you. And to be marketed to almost feels gross in that scenario. The last one is really clear calls to action. Get them to do something now because, again, you're going to lose their attention afterwards. We believe that a lot of these things are going to continue after COVID, and we have to be, as brewery owners and managers, we have to be sensitive to this. It's not just going back to what it was like prior to COVID. Because not everything is working. You can tell that we have a bit of a beef with product beauty shots. I'm all for beautiful photos and Instagram worthy anythings, but we need to see people enjoying your product. We need to see people out and about. We need to see and feel the energy of your brewery, which is not going to happen in a staged product shot. Can't. Clumsy or broken websites, we're better than this. Our industry needs to be better than this. There's no excuse not to have a working website, a mobile responsive website that shows up good on any device. Attracting new drinkers is not something that we've been focused on. We've been focused on keeping the lights on, quite honestly. Now, attracting new drinkers is a different mindset for an owner and a manager. What do I need to do differently? It's not just about the same 10 people who sit around the bar on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock who you can count on like clockwork. It's about expanding that net of people that look like that core group, but are a town over, are state over. How do you expand your messaging to attract new drinkers who aren't familiar with you? It's a shift that we have to address. Customer service, again, there's a bit of apathy, and we just can't have it. We can't have it in our industry. We don't want to be represented by that. We don't want to be known for poor customer service. So we need to step up as an industry to address that. And then understanding and highlighting the differences between you and the brewery next door, down the street, across the block. There's a lot of competition right now. And now that we're emerging from what would be the pandemic and the dark times, we need to remember that customers don't look at our breweries the way we look at them. We see the differences immediately. Oh, of course, my beer's better. Yeah, I've got that pride factor. They don't see it that way. And so we have to identify those things that make us different and celebrate those with marketing. What can we do? We're talking about this threat, the threat of robots invading. Again, it's not the idea that there's going to be an actual invasion so much as the opportunity for that invasion should give us pause. Well, what does that mean? And how can I course correct for that? What we do is we make ourselves seem human. We humanize our brands, we humanize our brewery, our products. We relate to people in a way that maybe is a little uncomfortable, is a little new for us. But we are understanding that the customer wants that from us, and it's time that we gave it to them. These are the kind of projects we work on all the time, and we love it. We love helping the breweries to tell that unique message and connect and engage with customers. Let's completely over dramatize this because we're going to save humanity from the invasion. If you look at it in a 30, 60, 90-day time frame, you can nearly grab all of the low-hanging fruit to help propel your business forward. So what we've done is we've broken it down into chunks so that you and your team can go back and have an actionable blueprint for how to address what's going on right now. In 30 days, you're going to be driving additional traffic. 60 days, you're building that engagement with your current friends and followers, as well as a whole slew of new ones. And then after 90 days, you've pretty much dialed in how to capture new sales. It's important to replace your current customers. You don't ever want to think about John or Sue at the bar that Tuesday we spoke of. You don't want to ever see them stop coming to the bar. They're consistent and they're friendly and they love you and you certainly love them as well as their money. However, the reality of craft beer right now is that customers aren't loyal. It's very, very rare that you find absolute loyalty where a customer is going to drink you and nobody else and not want to experiment or try. And so the tools that we put together address the opportunity to market and message to your existing customer base, but we want you to find 3x that number, knowing that you're going to have to replace them at some point. It's just the reality of it. The attrition rate could be less, it could be more, doesn't matter. The point is that you need to be thinking about a bigger net, a wider net that reaches beyond your current core customer base. Here are some tools to do that. When you know your customer, especially your current one, there's a confidence there. It's a little easier to say, oh yeah, well, it's really easy to imagine advertising or promoting a post to a local enthusiast group or a bike group or a local PTA. Now, if you take a look at that same customer and try and find others that look like them, it's a little more challenging. We need to be up to the challenge. We ask ourselves when we're doing marketing engagements like this, we ask, like, well, what do they like to drink? What gets them going? What motivates them? What kind of experiences do they like? How do they engage with brands? How often do they visit? When you ask all these questions, you start to paint a picture of not only who the current customer is, who's sitting there right in front of you, and a little easier to recognize, but your target customer, that bigger sea of people and dollars. You would also want to know what competitors they drink. Well, what is it about this other brewery that they like? And then, what do they want from you? Sometimes when we brew a beer and we're so proud of it, we lose sight of the fact that we might like it, but maybe nobody else does. If we aren't providing beers, ciders to people who want those beers and ciders, then the business is going to dry up. You have to sell your product. So you have to be listening to what styles they might want from you. So part of our 30-day plan is to get your website right, just plain and simple. We talk about it a lot, that these tools are available, whether that's Shopify or WordPress. It's relatively straightforward with not a lot of coding. You could have a beautiful website yet this week, yet some of them are clumsy and broken, like we said. Your homepage could work a lot harder. Imagine somebody who has 10 breweries near them, 20 breweries, a market like Denver with hundreds. You have choices. Now, if I'm doing a search for breweries near me, what makes your brewery stand out? Ask yourself if your homepage is working hard enough, if I've got the fleeting glance of somebody looking at me on their mobile device in the Uber or Lyft on the way someplace. It should display beautifully on a mobile. It's just table stakes at this point. What we're really after is this feeling of, I want to be there. It cuts through the clutter. Again, it's the idea of people in pictures, for example. Now, I could show beautiful product photography, staged and background worthy. However, if in a moment's glance I see people enjoying a beer at your tasting room, then you've immediately caused that person who wasn't familiar before this, you cause them pause, and that's enough to grab their attention. And once you have their attention, you can seal the deal with him converting and actually making it to your tasting room. And then linking to the social feeds and contact forms. Something else on the 30-day plan is just understanding how Google makes you available to searchers. Again, we use the example of breweries near me. How many breweries show up in that search? Could be 10, it could be hundreds. Now, if Google can't find you, if Google can't index you, then Google's not going to present you in the list of results to that customer. And this is a little techy, and it's fine. You know, we all get comfortable with it. We need to help Google find our brewery in order to share it with everybody else. We need to understand the back end of our website just so we can report on it. You know, you want to know what's working and what's not working. Just like you know exactly what beers sell and what beers don't sell, which recipes you keep and which ones you retire. Now, events, if you have events at your brewery, man, put them up on the website because Google loves that. They want to see that there's activity at your location, and they're going to give you even more visibility in the search results if you have those events listed. And for goodness sakes, update your business hours. I can't tell you how many people at breweries don't have their updated hours, especially during COVID when things were changing and we were closed, we were open, we had restricted capacity. Make sure your hours of operation are open, because the last thing you want is for somebody to get excited about you and they show up and your doors are closed. And then the last part of the 30-day plan is getting bev alcohol journalists to write about you. This is so important, and oftentimes it's free. Journalists want content. They want to give their readers some piece of your brewery, some story about your brewery, because that means that journalist is creating content, and that's what their job is. Make it interesting for them. Make it easy for them. Just like we want customers to have an easy route to yes, give a journalist an easy reason to write about you. And that means knowing what's newsworthy, whether that's product releases, events, designing a press release template. Again, it seems maybe a little on the technical side. Doesn't need to be. It's very straightforward. And then you can reuse that for every notification that you send out to basically your small list of brewery-friendly media contacts, whether that's the local news or a beer blogger or an influencer, somebody in your area that has a lot of attention who could spread that message and get you some new people in seats, some great new sales. You can self-distribute this. You don't even need a service. And the point of all these marketing and sales efforts is to track the response, because you want to go to this list. You want to go to the well as often as you can, as often as it makes sense to send that message out there, because it's going to continue to produce new sales for you. 60 days is all about storytelling, which we love to do, and we think it's underutilized by craft beverage. We certainly talk quite a bit about it, but it's the reason that a new drinker would choose you over the next brewery. And sometimes the competition isn't even just breweries. It's other wineries, distilleries. It's other opportunities to spend money in a social situation, restaurants, festivals, music concerts. So you're competing against where they're spending their money to entertain themselves. Storytelling helps do that. It helps to understand who those competitors are. But it also helps to understand how you're different and in what areas you can compete, what areas you own. What's the real threat? Is it to traffic, to sales? Is it a drinker falling in love with another brewery because of X, new product, events, whatever they offer that you don't? What if you can size up the competition objectively, take pride out of the equation, size up the competition, and understand what the threats are, then you're better able to actually address the opportunities, the white space between the threats. It's all about engagement at 60 days. We want you to engage your website visitors. Give them reason to explore your site. Help guide them. Give them a bit of a journey. You grab their attention with the homepage and then give them pointers to different areas of the site that might be of interest to them. Double down on lifestyle and customer photos, even more so than products at this point. Something to consider is something like a facilities tour. Now you think, well, what point does that serve? Well, somebody who's never been to your brewery may very well want a 30-second first-person walkthrough of the tasting room and behind the scenes and the smiling, friendly faces and the beer tenders slinging beers. And that kind of moment for them is an opportunity for them to say, I want to be there. But if they don't see it, if you don't give that to them, it's harder for them to connect and to say yes. Reviews. Let's be very transparent with the good and the bad. Let's put up a bunch of reviews that people submit. Let's solicit that. Let's make that available on our website, because people who aren't familiar with us yet, they want to see that other people objectively have actually enjoyed it. What beer should I try? They've got 20 on tap. Oh, well, one of these reviewers said they love the pineapple flavor and this hazy. Okay, all right. I mean, that's a jumping off point. It's a place to start. So let's take down our defenses and let's be a little more transparent and simple by allowing that kind of customer feedback. And then in order to address the customer service expectations, let's get instant messengers and chats going. Because even if it takes me a couple minutes to respond to a Facebook chat messenger, I'm going to respond. I'm going to get them what they need. If it's a food truck that they're asking about tonight, they'll have that information. The sooner I respond, the better my customer service, the more likely that new customer is to give you a try and visit. This also applies on the social side, engaging those fans and followers. Now, we're a big fan of social media management tools like a Sprout Social or a Hootsuite, which just make it a little more straightforward to post on a regular basis, as well as to listen to what social people are talking about. Do train multiple posters. It's really difficult unless you have a full-time employee who's committed to this. It's really difficult to rely on just one person to manage all of the social. You want people who are in the tasting room in real time, capturing moments that happen as they happen. Create content calendars to more or less line up with the product release schedule and the events for the month. If there's a post that's performing a little higher than normal, then throw a little bit of money behind it, because again, that's going to extend the reach and grab you new audience members. And then encourage users to submit content as well. We're in the home stretch, so 90 days, a little further out, but obviously requiring a little bit of time and attention in order to execute. Create that sense of urgency that prompts people to buy. And not just to buy now, because again, we're only going to have their attention for a limited amount of time. And so we need to have the call to action and conversion happen in the moment. We always try and figure out what makes us different from the next guy. What's in it for the customer? Why should they care? What's unique about us? We talk about relevancy, whether that's relevant in the industry or relevant in our geography, understanding what our voice and personality are so we can communicate that and what we promise. When you know these things, then it makes it a little easier to have a sales pitch in that way to a customer, a new customer, because we want them to have selling moments put in front of them. We want the product catalog to be updated. What are the latest beers that are available? Are they available for on-premise, on-site dining, or do we have to buy them and take them home? Is it in a bottle format? Can I get it curbside? Help them to see the options available for all the beers and seltzers that you sell. Product and use photos, going back to lifestyle imagery. Try and layer in additional data to help them make that decision, sensory data and specs on the brew day and ABV and maybe even recipes. Include them, involve them in the process, and be transparent about it. Make it super simple to buy with a big old buy now button that leads to that e-commerce storefront that we were talking about. And if you're at retail, go ahead and link to that. It's okay. Just so long as they're buying your product. Because it's not always the tasting room that's going to sell them, but when it is, we can make great tasting room selling moments as well. Take those photos with permission, use them on the website, open up your spaces for private parties and group events and things like this, and promote the heck out of that on the website. If you've got an active events calendar, bring it to light. If you don't, then we would ask, why not? There are plenty of opportunities to draw attention to your space other than just the beer that you're selling. And then on site, make sure that there's really clean product display and signage. What's in the beer? What style is it? What does it taste like? Make it easy for them to make the decision. And then use your beer tenders to complement that information. Get them over the edge and maybe making that buying decision. Email is not dead. So let's figure out how to make immediate action happen with email. Find a way to capture their email address. Use it for notifications for beer releases, events, other newsletters. Figure out a way to make sure that that looks beautiful on a mobile, because people are looking at their mobile for emails in between meetings and while they're commuting. And then, of course, track and report the performance. So we learn what's working and what's not. So what we ask always is that you take a look at your efforts from a slightly different perspective. We ask you to take a look at your marketing and sales efforts from the view of a consumer. Do they land with that consumer, that new drinker? Is it easy to find you? Are you discoverable? Once they do find you, how easy is it for them to say yes to buying your product, to enjoying the experience in your tasting room? We're at the end of our presentation today, but we would encourage you to dig a little deeper into this topic. Don't let this be the last time you think about how to humanize your brand. And we would offer up a free guide in order to do so. Jump on our website, use the Craft Beer Professionals code, and download the 23-page guide for free. It's basically a blueprint, 30, 60, 90 days on how to make this happen. Or if you want, you can download any of our guides for that matter. We certainly appreciate the opportunity, and Andrew and the Craft Beer Professionals, to present humanizing your brand and fending off the robot invasion. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them in the last couple minutes that we have. Everybody's processing. He started off talking about robots and he ended up with humanizing my brewery. This was a leap. Gonna have to wrestle with this one for a little bit. Well, enjoy the rest of the spring virtual conference. Again, thank you to Arrive POS, River Drive Cooperage, and White Labs for sponsoring this conference and for the opportunity for Market Your Craft to present this information. Cheers and best wishes.